Hello, fellow map makers. I'm here to showcase a tool that I've been working on over the past couple of weeks. I'm very big into CTM map making, and unfortunately it can be a little bit difficult to edit your spawners. Once you install this data pack, you'll get a little prompt in chat that shows, hey, spawner tweaker is enabled, and you can always enable or disable it by using this trigger. To go ahead and trigger and toggle spawner tweaker, I can turn it on and off as I like. So first things first, spawners that are nearby will automatically get registered into a system. It basically keeps track of spawner types by ID. And this basically groups spawners together based off if they have the same spawn potentials, and that can be used to edit them later on. We'll also give you a spawner with the properties of that mob as well as their name. In this case, this is a tier 1 melee bog. You can see it has default health and attack, as well as a spawn delay of 30 to 60 seconds, a bunch of other details there. One of the important things with registering spawners is that datapack will draw a ray from your eyes to whatever block you're looking at in creative mode, and then it will search the area around it. You can use this command in order to up the range on that. It's got a maximum of 15. This is exponentially more laggy the bigger the radius is. So I'm just going to go through and register most of the spawners in this map here, and then I'll check back in with you guys in a little bit. All right, now that we've registered most of the spawners in the map, I can go ahead and show you guys the meat and potatoes of this pack. So the meat and potatoes really is the spawner tweaking itself. So in order to highlight a spawner, you're basically going to look at it while holding any spawner, and it will pull up a little menu of options right here. You can scroll through this menu by holding down shift or whatever your sneak key is and left or right clicking. In order to increment or decrement the options, you can left or right click. So in this case, I can modify the range that the spawner will detect the player within. We can go ahead and set it to be whatever we desire here. But let's say we wanted the spawner to go off as soon as the player kind of reaches this boundary here. You can go ahead and up that radius right there. You can change the range of the mob spawn inside of, how many mobs the spawner will attempt to spawn. It's the count right here. The maximum number of mobs that can be around the spawner, the mob cap, as well as the delay, the light levels, pretty much all of the important aspects of spawners. You can edit them. In this example, you can see that up top here, it's showing the name of the spawner as well as how many spawners there are of this in the map itself. It says that this is a jockey, which means that in this case, whatever mob is inside this spawner has another mob on top of it. So in this case, there's two spiders stacked on top of each other, and that's why that is showing. In cases with spawners that have multiple spawn potentials, it will show all of them as well as a percentage that the spawn potentials can spawn. Normally, when you look at another spawner while having a spawner selected, it will select that other spawner and move the selection over to it. But there's a neat feature that I've added to Spawner Tweaker 2.0, where if you crouch and look at another spawner while having one selected, it will select them both at the same time. And you can see both the radiuses, you can see all the information about these spawners, as well as up top here, you can see how many you have selected at once. So in this case, let's say we wanted to increase the range of both of these, so that way it'll detect the player when they're a little bit further away. You can go ahead and up the range on both of them, and they'll both increase at the same time right there. So now once the player reaches about this spot, both these spawners will activate at once. If you're a little bit worried about light levels, you can also increase that here, so that way these candles maybe don't pose as much of an issue. Now obviously, when registering these spawners, it's going to happen as you're making the map. But it's possible that you could forget about a mob that's very problematic, and you're trying to find a spawner to fix it. For example, let's say my players are experiencing rather problematic baby zombies right around this section right here. For the love of me, I can't figure out which spawner it is or where it's at. I'm going to show you guys a couple ways of dealing with that with some of the new features of Spawner Tweaker 2.0. The first is that we have a new trigger called Highlight Spawners. And this trigger will basically set a certain amount of time to make all loaded spawners glow. So if I trigger this, you can see all of the spawners that are registered. And oh, we can see that there's one over here. Let's see. Aha, these are those evil baby zombies we were worried about earlier. But let's say that we are somewhere later in the map and we don't really want to go through and find those baby zombies manually. Maybe you want to just go rebalance the spawner. Let's say instead we just wanted to replace all those baby spawners at once rather than having to go through and find them all. What I can do in that case is I can trigger give all spawners. And that's going to spawn a barrel, or several barrels beneath me, with all the various spawners in the map. And so if we look through here, we can find this evil baby zombie spawner. Perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and get that registered right there, because we can modify this spawner, and then we can bulk update all spawners of the same ID. So in this case, I'm going to go use data modify, but you guys could use data merge. You could place a new spawner here. Pretty much whatever you want to do should work. Okay, now that we have this spawner edited, we can go ahead and select it with Spawner Tweaker, and we can see that this little menu's opened up in chat. And it's basically prompting us what we want to do because the data of this spawner has changed. In this case, we can do nothing, which won't change anything. It'll just make the spawner a little bit unique. The second option is Update ID, which will update all spawners of the same ID to have the properties of this spawner right here. And that's actually what we want to do in this situation. So let's go ahead and do that. And just like that, the baby zombie spawner is no longer a baby zombie spawner, and it is spawning a full zombie at this point. Something else you might run into is an issue like this right here, where we have this spider spawner that's basically immune to light. And what happened was essentially several of these got placed around the map accidentally, even though they shouldn't be light immune in other locations. So the way we can fix that, we have a copy of the spawner right here. We can go ahead and change the light level to be something more reasonable. Let's say 0 to 7 right here. Now I could go and modify the data of this spawner to be slightly different to pull up this menu in chat, but there is a way in order to force that update without it. That will be documented on the wiki right here. And so basically the command looks a little bit like this. We're gonna go ahead and get the XYZ of this spawner, and then we're gonna run this function. This is gonna run the bulk update option right here. Now the way this option works is that not only will it update the entity within the spawner, but it's also going to update the range, the spawn potentials, the light levels, everything like that. So that's what we want to do here. So you can go ahead and do that. And now all spawners with an ID of 3 have been bulk edited. At this point, if I wanted to change the spawner to be more unique, I can go ahead and set the spawner's light level to be back to 15. All the other spawners in the map are going to have that lower light. Now, let's say that I'm editing some mobs here in my dev room, and I decide to make a new mob right here. It's called the Bulky Husks. Now, because it's in the same spot as a spawner that has been registered previously, it's going to prompt us if we want to create a new ID for it or update all of the existing spawners to that ID. This is going to be one of those situations where we're going to want to assign the spawner a new ID because this is a new mob that we're creating. So if we go ahead and select that option there, it'll go ahead and create a new ID for these guys and give me a spawner. So you can go ahead and throw away this old one and use this new one. You can see these guys have quite a bit of health and damage, but they're very, very slow. And that's how you use all of the various bulk editing features. Now let's say I'm trying to place multiple spawners at once here, but I don't want it selecting. I don't want it enabling Spawner Tweaker. I want to place the spawner right there. So what you can do is you can go ahead and hold down Shift and go ahead and place your spawner, and it will not enable Spawner Tweaker. These spawners will go ahead and get registered. We probably don't want quite that many. But the other thing you can do is you can always trigger toggle Spawner Tweaker, and it will toggle Spawner Tweaker on and off. So at this point, we can place spawners to our heart's content. Now these will still register inside the system right here, but it won't select them with Spawner Tweaker. Now you might notice these floating IDs here. These will go away if you move away and come back. They will help to serve as a marker in case you wanted to update those spawners and either create a new ID with it or do a bulk edit with it. That's why I still have those floating displays right there. So one thing some other creators have brought up to me is that sometimes when they go to edit a spawner, they'll sometimes select a different one through the wall, just like that there. And while that might be useful sometimes while map making, sometimes you just don't want that triggering. So in that case, we can go ahead and toggle the spawner piercer tweaking, and it will no longer allow you to tweak spawners through walls like that. It'll be completely line of sight based at that point. Okay, so the last feature I want to show you guys is the bulk priming feature. And basically it does exactly what it sounds like. It goes through and primes every single spawner in the world. Now, I should make mention that both the bulk edit and bulk priming features work across dimensions, and it does not matter if the chunks are loaded or not. The pack will do that for you. It'll force load them, modify the spawner, and then unforce load them. But the trigger for that is trigger prime spawners, and then we can set that to however many ticks we want the spawners to be. In this case, we'll usually want 0. Go ahead and do that. And as you can see right here, it went ahead and primed all the spawners, and it also removed any junk data needed from the world. So you saw all those spawners earlier, those got removed, the ones that we deleted from earlier. It'll also go through and remove extra data from spawners that might not be needed. So for example, if a spawner only has a single spawn potential, it actually doesn't need that spawn potential. So it'll remove that. Of course, it'll re-edit if you want to edit the spawner like that. There should also be a setting in the documentation that allows you to limit the range of where you prime spawners. So let's say you only wanted to prime the spawners in a specific area, area 1, for example. You go ahead and set the range on that and allow it to prime accordingly. There's a lot more settings than what I'm showing off here, and they'll all be listed in the documentation listed below. Let me know if there's any bugs or any features you guys would like with this data pack. I should be actively maintaining it indefinitely. Until next time, hope you guys have fun, and don't forget to make the most of your day.